Hey everybody,
Getting
I'm
things
Jonathan
going.
Crow. I'm director of community at Ninja One, and it's everybody say where you're calling in from. It's great to have you back in. We had a really awesome discussion last week, Alex, with some really big names, some forward, really leaders of the in the space.
I always get humbled by who's willing to come spend a little bit of time with us, right? A couple of clowns with some cameras and what do you know, the CEOs of the biggest companies in the channel will come hang out with us and share some insights. And boy, were they insightful.
Absolutely. I've got three takeaways
Yeah.
I wanted to run by you. And for anyone who wasn't able to catch last week's stream, go back and check it out. We've got it up on YouTube. We've done a good job of making it so you can navigate to chapters and things like that. But my three takeaways, Alex, and I'm curious to hear if you agree with this, or if you had any other ones. Number one, you do need to be the go-to position yourself as the go-to trusted advisor around AI for your clients. Because if you're not doing that, they're having these conversations either internally or with other people. That's
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one.
I thought that was super interesting. And that theme kind of flows through all of these big takeaways.
Yeah. Number two, this one I thought was really big. So we like we mentioned, we had some MSP leaders at very large MSPs who are they're taking different tacks to actively kind of grow their companies through acquisitions. Um, and what they made clear was they are looking at MSPs who are ahead of things, ahead of the curve in AI, when they're considering targets for acquisition, when they're considering partnerships, things like that.
And I never really thought about that. When we travel around the community and around the channel, everybody's talking about what's your EBITDA. They know they're really trying to kind of teach and beef up those $2 million MSPs so they can get enough EBITDA to be purchasable. But everything seems to be about recurring revenue, not being dependent on a couple of customers, having the right EBITDA. We heard a different story that you get some preferential treatment, and they're actually looking to kind of acquire some of these skill sets or buy MSPs who have a product that they can deploy around AI. So being AI first, or at least leading with some AI, gives you a leg up there. And that wasn't one I saw coming. Wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah. My third takeaway, very much related to this. They also, on the heels of that, really stressed that, like, okay, yeah, they're giant shops with huge amounts of revenue and big investors, funding, resources, smart folks. They say that smaller MSPs actually have a leg up in a lot of ways because they have some of that classic kind of startup, nimble, move fast advantage going on.
Yep. And nimble was the word, right? And that's the like startups are sure we can call them startups, but what they really are is fast, nimble businesses. And they have access to the exact same tool set as every other MSP out there. So if you're small, you can't feel like this is a disadvantage to you, like AI has you backed into a corner. This is your chance to go learn something new because you can pivot and move faster than the big guys can. You can develop new products and get them to market faster.
And so I think that tees us up perfectly for this week's conversation.
Yeah, but I want to say
Yeah.
one more thing before we
Oh,
before we
yes. Go
step
ahead.
into
Yeah.
that. There's a common thread in all three of those things that you pointed out, which is we can't plug our ears and go la 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 and pretend like AI is not here anymore. There are multiple reasons inside your business why we have to start to step in, lean into AI, and really start to take this forward. Hopefully, everybody who's here is here because they believe that they're starting to see that, or maybe they're not quite there and trying to figure out how to take the next step. And that's where this next conversation goes, which is how can we start it up in our own business, right?
Absolutely. And I think in addition to just how to start it up, I mean, like we always mention, we always want to hear from you all. So don't be shy. You're already telling us where you're from in the comments. Chime in, ask your questions, share what you're doing, because my guess is a lot of you are already actively working on some implementations in-house, experimenting with different ways that you're talking with, engaging your clients around AI. We want to hear from you. And the whole goal of this conversation this week, help you get started. If you're already started, it's to help you move faster.
Hmm.
So with that, I am going to share my screen and we can talk about this week's guest. We've talked a lot about last week's guest. This
Speaking
week,
of speaking of industry legends, let's bring in a few more. Yeah.
that's right. These guys are no slouches. All right, so we're going to be speaking with three very incredible folks. The first proud ninja, right? Our own resident AI leader, Joel Carosone. He is SVP of Data and AI at Ninja One. Got a great background in data analytics, machine learning, AI, and he's really was brought on to Ninja to build out that function. And so he's going to be sharing some of the lessons learned, how he's navigated Ninja's own internal labyrinth of hierarchy and resources to build out the AI functions here. We've also got John Harden, who is at Avik. He's director of strategy and technology evangelism. He's been doing all sorts of cool things, really driving forward AI use within Avik and being very public about his learnings and everything. I love that John is so eager to share everything that he learns on LinkedIn and other places as well. And then last but not least, we have Jimmy Hatzel, CEO of Hats AI. And Jimmy has really been at the forefront, super early out. He started his own business there with Hats AI, and he's been helping MSPs. It's all about moving fast and getting at the forefront, right? Like he's been helping them do exactly that, both in terms of shaping their own internal operations, but also really making this a productized offering to get out to market to clients. So
Welcome everybody. That's where we're at. Yeah. I want to just take a second and point out, like, a company the size of Ninja has decided that a senior vice president role goes to AI. That tells you how important AI is to every customer that you talk to today. I just want to call that out because we kind of glossed over senior vice president. This is short of a C-level role. This is AI at the top of the organization that you're working with. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. Well, I think you've teed up Joel to tell us a little bit about himself. But before we do that, Joel, I also want to point out, this is something John called out. The algorithm is pretty lazy here. We've got 4 J's. We've got Jonathan, John, Jimmy, Joel. And then we got Alex.
My middle name's John. Come on now. You cut me some slack.
We're calling him Jalix for the show, by the way.
There you go.
I answered all kinds of things. I'm well trained.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, taking time out of your busy days. Really looking forward to this conversation. And I think where we wanted to start off was focusing more internally within orgs. How do you lead change management? How do you really get your AI priorities institutionalized and off the ground, right? And then in the second half of the conversation, we really want to move over into how are you really rolling this out into your client base. I mean, if you're not going to be making money off this, if you're not positioning yourself to be, this is a core product offering you have, you risk falling behind. So that's kind of our general flow for it. And Joel, let's start off with you. We teed you up as Ninja One's AI guy. You want to give us a little bit more background and tell us what you're working on?
Yeah, for sure. First off, thanks for having me. I joined Ninja about a year ago now. So as you described, kind of the mandate was start to build out, a more robust practice around AI and machine learning. So the team has scaled up pretty aggressively over the last year at this point. We've got internal use cases that we've been working on, so I can talk through some of those. And then obviously we have the customer-facing use cases as well, given the product that we sell within the market. I think, as it relates to internal initiatives, I think from our side, this came from our CEO, Sal, saying like, hey, we've done a little bit on this. We've dabbled with some tools, some different services, but this is where the market is moving, and we ultimately need to make a bigger investment there. So the last year, we've gone from having very, very little in the way of language model-based tooling within the organization to a homegrown solution that we've developed called Samurai that interacts with effectively all the data within the organization, everything from support tickets, Dojo, which is like our knowledge base that we use within customers and ultimately for internal knowledge as well. Some of our finance systems, Salesforce, SalesLoft, marketing automation, pretty much anything that you can think of that has large quantities of data that language models would be effective at being able to distill down. We've pretty much built integrations at that point. I think as it relates to where to start, I think start small, right? A lot of these things take a lot longer than you would expect them to do. tooling, even over the last year, has got extremely more robust, right? Things that you had to develop yourself or internally are starting to become a bit more commoditized. So it's a lot easier to bring some of these things to market today. But you know, as I said, happy to talk to specifics on some of the internal solutions if helpful.
Isn't
Awesome.
it crazy to say the words AI tooling is getting commoditized already as we see it kind of going parabolic this way, but it's already becoming commoditized in some of the tooling. And I think that's part of the problem, right? You know, AI is in everything. It's in your Office 365 tenant, it's in your Notion or your, you know, every tool you log into, but it's not super usable. And you guys are kind of tackling that. How do we make it usable?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I want to use this as a segue to get John to tee himself up too. But you know, Joel, there is that realization. Okay, we are going to invest more. Ninja One is going to invest more in AI. We're going to have an SVP level. We're going to have its own function, right? And for the MSPs watching, this is a question that came up at the tail end of the conversation last week. You know, there's some MSPs that have their own automation. They mature to the point where they have their own automation team. And you can see that maybe this is a similar kind of pattern, or maybe those are the right people to take these types of initiatives on. But John, you've kind of approached things from a little bit of a different angle, where you had a role and you kind of volunteered, I guess, or maybe you were voluntold, I'm not sure, to really spearhead some initiatives. And so I'm curious, you know, there's okay, we're going to make something new. We're going to go out and hire an expert and bring that in to run its own dedicated function. That's one path. You've done something a little bit different though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So pleasure to be on the show here. Thanks for having me here. I will say real quick, because I feel like Alex Farley might be seething. We did behind the scenes. He said he would send me a shirt. And I didn't have time to change it, and so
And you
he
dragged it all the way to the
shirt.
conference with you today. That's
So I
amazing.
dragged
I love
to
it.
the conference, so I'll wear it for at least this answer. But yes, we took it differently. It was a approach internally at Auvik that we needed to leverage AI, not just in the product, but as employees in the way that we run and operate the business. And so, you know, my role is strategy and evangelism, which gave me a lot of leeway. I spearheaded back in Q1 our initial understanding of how we were going to leverage AI. And a few of my learnings along the way that I think are quick and easy to share here were, you know, you can't have an AI transformation with have-nots. One thing that Auvik did was intentionally invest AI access to every employee and AI training to every employee. And so that was one thing that was really successful. And I can just give you countless stories of people where individuals who would, you know, they DM me and say, hey, I'm afraid to, you know, use ChatGPT. I tried it and never had value. Now they're leading automatic, you know, they're building custom GPTs and agentic AI, and they're getting value out of it. And so, you know, the first thing is you can't have an AI transformation with have-nots. So access is key and access is critical. And then we went down to agentic AI, which is really now what I'm leading, which is the autonomous AI use cases inside of our business. And I think, you know, there's an inordinate amount more value actually in the agentic AI world than the Gen AI side, which is what a lot of people are dabbling with. And we're running now automations in our sales cycles and in our onboard cycles and other areas of our business to streamline operations that nobody, you know, wants to do. One of my big favorite things to say, if you're looking internally at business, don't just look at the traditional business chart of high value, low effort. I think it's now high value over low effort plus low friction. Like removing the points of jobs that people don't like is a really good way to get started with AI, because you're going to get so much adoption of it if you take the painful parts of jobs away. And so Auvik has done a full transformation on our business internally, starting to dabble on where we're going to put it in our product and how we're going to support our users with more agentic and Gen AI. But it's super excited to spearhead the initiative. And as we get into the internal side, I'll share a couple more tips.
Okay, great. I appreciate that, John. And Jimmy, last but not least, man. So what's exciting about you is that we've got two guys who are doing this internally at vendors, right? And then you are working actively hands-on with MSPs. You get to see this firsthand, kind of in the trenches with these guys. And so, yeah, talk a little bit about what you've been seeing, and also just Hats AI, like give people a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So just some real quick context, you know, I launched the business beginning of last year, and we started building right away. So like that was like ready, set, go. And by the end of the year, we had a good amount of MSPs sort of testing and using it internally, and a couple had customers, and we iterated the product a couple times. And the goal and sort of like our vision on everything we do as a company, as Hats, is how do we productize AI into usable use cases for small businesses in a way that MSPs can manage, sell, and support it, right? So that's a very open-ended sort of like, right? Like there's lots of AI technology that, because we knew that things would change fast, and they are changing fast, right? The best model changes every month. The types of use cases you can do changes all the time. So what happened over the past, like in 2025, is we had a lot of MSPs move from like, okay, I'm using this internally, to I'm going to go get my first customer, to I'm going to have a couple customers, to now I have an AI division. Now I have a division in my company, a full proven onboarding playbook. I do open meetings for all of our customers. We even take on net new logos supporting AI. And that transformation, there's a couple things that happen that I wouldn't expect, right? Like we've had MSPs who their biggest source of new logo acquisition is AI, right? They started internally and built the competencies and that stuff, but it's sort of become the pipeline for their managed services contracts. I just talked to an MSP salesperson, and she said like selling managed services, a lot of it is about timing and catching a person at like when they're sort of ready, when they're moving off of someone, when they're taking something externally, whatever it is. But with AI, she doesn't have that constraint, and she can bring in the new logos and the new customers. And that everyone wants to talk about AI, and that she purposely avoids the technical discussions and the technical use cases. We're in a period right now where businesses just want to know, hey, how do I use that? So I think a couple of people mentioned in the beginning, but just like being able to raise your hand and position yourself as, I can have that conversation with you. I can be, your Sherpa for this new technology, the same way I was for moving to the cloud and cybersecurity and every past mega trend that's ever happened. I can be there to help you along the way. So like it comes in multiple waves from like, how do you actually do this as an MSP? If there's a training portion, and we have a training system. We partnered with Empath, and they have some of our syndicated training on their platform, which we love. And we've definitely had some MSPs who found us through there, which we're grateful for. But also just giving people access. Like AI is it's a bottom up and top down at the same time. And cybersecurity was not that. Movement to cloud was not that. Nobody was like, hey, I'm using this endpoint protection on my laptop that I really like, and Joe in sales is using a different endpoint protection, right? That's not, but the reality is, like, customers right now, you have some people using ChatGPT free, some people are like the projects and the paid, and other people are on like Grok or Gemini or whatever it is. So you have this like bottom up problem that has all sorts of security problems, but also actual business value that can be delivered, which is a great conversation to have as an MSP, because we have a lot of conversations in the IT world about like bad things that can happen. These are good quick ROI conversations, which is, I see Jonathan lighting up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the top down strategy as well. Like, how do we roll this out to everyone? How do we build our business core use cases, like y'all are working at it at Ninja and Alvic's working at? And how do we turn it into a product that we can actually sell and manage without breaking our support desk, where everybody's like, how do I use AI? So I feel like I've talked too long, but I could talk all day about it. It's a fun world. It's moving fast.
No, it's great. And I mean, there's everyone get your questions ready. Chat's a little quiet. You guys should pipe up. Add in Q&A. You can add the questions there. You can add it right into chat. One thing I'm definitely going to drill into, Jimmy, is I'm curious about you talking about you're starting to see clients or customers who are starting to roll things out. I'm interested in, like, what does that look like initially? Is it consulting and all that? I don't want to tease too much. Like, can you give me like a little bit of a teaser, and then I'm going to go back to Joel and John for the internal stuff.
Yeah, I'll give you how I thought it was going to go and how it's happening in reality. How about that?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I thought what would happen is MSPs would start with AI assessments and then have these big sort of like consulting practices or like multi-month engagements to build out these like complex AI workflows and automations, and then flip that into a managed service contract, or a managed AI service contract. And what's happening in reality is MSPs are having that thought leadership conversation. They're leading with narrow, high value use cases. Hey, you have sales reps, they use HubSpot or Salesforce. Here's how you use AI to generate opportunities in them and prepare for meetings. Hey, you're a construction company. Here's a workflow that is already built that we can just add for you right away, that takes construction diagrams as an image and then outputs material lists and a couple other things. Oh, you're a bank and you want to generate a header for a credit memo, right? Like here's how we've done that before, and it's ready to go, and it's baked, and go on and use it. And saying we can give this to you. We'll give you these technologies. We'll provide you guidance and training, which is a big portion of it. A lot of MSPs that I work with, they'll do two things. One, they offer training to everyone right away, and then they'll do ongoing sort of like group trainings or AI office hours, like we like to call them. So like the MSP who just spoke at my partner roundtable an hour ago. She had 12 of her customers on her last AI office hours, where she's just going through use cases, answering questions, sharing with people. And a portion of that is preventing those questions from bubbling up to your help desk. Like, hey, how do I build this? How do I do that? But setting like a scope right away, like we'll help you set this up initially. We'll help get everyone access. We'll provide some training and guidance. And if you want some complex automations or some, new integrations or something with APIs or something like that, we can provide that to you too. Those packages start at X dollars. And that's sort of has been the reverse, because I thought everybody would sort of start with that. And instead they're starting with access, use it, narrow, high value, pre-built. And then if you want something heavily custom that's going to take a while, we'll do that too for you.
But Jonathan, this kind of lines up with that original post that I threw out on LinkedIn that said, like, how are MSPs, how are you taking this to market? And the answer was either we don't know what our customers want, but we're trying to get the conversation started, or our customers are coming to us and going, hey, we AI is all the rage, help us figure out AI, but we don't know what we want. And I think it would be an interesting pivot right now just to take this conversation to John and to Joel and talk about, like, internally in your organizations, are you seeing the same kind of pattern? Like, how are you picking which projects get attention, picking which things you automate? And is that coming from the leadership down? Is that coming from the employees up? Or is that coming from partners and relationships and people who are recommending something to you? Because just like you guys are dealing with it at Auvik and at Ninja, your customers are dealing with it internally, even if you're not in the room.
Yeah, and I mean, in MSPs, I mean, Joel, you're in a sense, I mean, MSPs are hoping to serve in this role of, hey, we can advise you, right? You're kind of, you're obviously in a much different role, but there's some similarities there. Like you're now tasked with, okay, you're within an org, and you're the one who's charged with finding the value and how you roll things out.
Yeah, my role is interesting in that it's a bit of product management and it's a bit of engineering, right? So we have to build the things, but we also have to look at it from a product perspective and say, does it even make sense to actually throw development resources on these? We've, similar to what Jimmy had talked about in terms of, narrow high value use cases, like we do the exact same thing on the internal development side. Is this something that is commodity, right? Like, can somebody just take something, copy and paste it into ChatGPT and get the answer? Probably not a great use case for us to build on, but does it require collecting data from 5 or 6 different systems, doing some distillation on it, understanding workflows and whatnot? Like, that's actually a use case that could make sense. It ends up, for I think a lot of reasons, steering a lot towards the sales organization, right? Like, you're building things that are going to help drive revenue for the business, because it's a lot easier to show ROI, right? Those support use cases, yeah, there's some cost savings because you can get to an answer faster, but ultimately, like, language models are not cheap, right? So you have to be, at some level, be able to offset that. And the fastest way to offset some of those costs is to do sales-focused activities. And that's where a lot of our internal efforts are then, steering at this point in time.
So,
and
yeah, go ahead, John.
I was just going to pile on to what Joel said. It is a bit of product management and engineering, which I think is why I love it, because I come from that background. It's also a lot of change management and project management. It's all of it wrapped up. Jimmy made the point earlier. This isn't different than server. This isn't different than cyber. This isn't like all the other server to cloud that was. These are the same things. We can lean into our earlier learnings. And Joel, we're very similar too. We're finding a lot of the high ROI and the demonstrable use cases for using AI is in the sales and marketing realm.
Yeah.
We do have a dedicated team internally that's focused on making the product better with AI. But some of the easiest wins we've found, and Jonathan, you asked the question, like, how are you looking at it? I'm going to go back to my statement earlier. I was looking at friction, and I've used this term a lot. You've probably heard me say it a lot. It's about removing parts of the job that aren't not going to create friction. One of our first agentic AI use cases were a customer that buys our product has to go through onboarding, and no account exec loves writing handoff notes. Nobody's going to be like making more money. The onboard success team, they're going to get what they get, but it was a friction part of the sales job. And so we went in there, we removed that friction by autonomously doing that with agentic AI. Nobody loves taking disco notes and putting them into a presentation to bring to the customer. So it's about taking the friction jobs over the value jobs, because what I think was happening is by removing friction from people's jobs, they're becoming our inputs for all these opportunities for next agentic AI use cases, because they're supportive of it. Versus had I come in and said, hey, we're going to slash support by half and we're going to autonomously do all our support. Like, we're focusing on removing the like really painful parts of job, and people are really supportive of bringing cases to us now because they're realizing we can make their lives easier. And so when we had this big boom, remember everybody said we're going to lay off everybody, and everybody got fearful and scared. Well, we took the approach that we're just going to remove the painful parts of the job, and so we can make their lives easier. And then people come to us with now, and I think that's a shift that if you're looking with your customers, find those champions who have painful parts of their jobs inside the businesses that they can bring to you and work with them to deliver it.
Yeah, if you missed Pete Melby last week, he actually said all the tier 1 engineers are worried that we're going to replace them, and he said they're not wrong, but they're thinking about it the wrong way, because we're going to give them tools that enable them to go be a tier 2 or a tier 3 engineer.
That's right. Yeah,
and we're not going to replace them so quickly that their jobs just disappear. There's a natural 10% attrition in that job role, and we just might not hire a role back when someone leaves. And I think that was a little comforting, like that landed a little better than AI's coming for your job. Because Pete just approaches it from a super realistic, like, let's be honest, yes, there are some jobs that we will get a tractor instead of having a guy dig a ditch by himself, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to change a bunch of people's lives for the negative immediately.
That's actually,
By the way, you nailed his cadence there. You said that exactly the way that he says that. So
let's launch a poll. We got a poll. JP, if you wouldn't mind, can you launch our poll about hiring? I think this is apropos here. And so, yeah, how is AI impacting your hiring and training plans too? It's not just about hiring, right? And we got a couple options here. We're reducing planned hires, increasing AI-related specialist hires, increasing training to up-level current staff, or no change, ... yet. And so we'll share the results of that. Thanks everybody for taking time to answer that. Super curious about it. Peter Melby also had a quote. This goes actually to this podcast that we've been talking way too much about. He did with Todd Kane. And it goes to the point that you guys have been making. So all this transition, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Like it is similar to the security patterns and everything, but it's also different in some cool, very exciting ways that Jimmy, you hinted at, and you said my eyes lit up. Like, what got me about security, that conversation for so long, is that it's about fear, it's about risk, removing risk. It's not about like helping someone get something done and do their job. And so and IT has such a cool way to be a part of that. So the quote was, security wasn't exciting, it was scary. Cloud was exciting for nerds. AI is exciting for users. Where we used to be seeing a push, now we're seeing a pull. And so I guess my question for you, John, like both you and Joel hinting at there's opportunity in the sales functions, like removing friction from roles. For the MSPs out there in the audience, what's their role in this? Are they do they need to be experts in knowing where the friction is in these roles? Do they just need to know where the champions are? Like how do they change their jobs to be able to really truly advocate and know where to focus AI in the right places? Anybody?
I was like, John, you want to go on this one?
I mean, I think Jimmy should start, but I do
I was
have
gonna
an
say-
opinion because I feel like of all the people, Jimmy's in the
Yeah,
grinder
I
seat.
think
no,
this is
it's
Jimmy's
fine.
question, but I have lots of feelings on this one.
Yeah, I mean, like if you want to recruit someone with 5 years of experience using large language models in their daily task, like it doesn't exist. So like I think like so a couple points to it. So the first is like people being excited about it. It's easier to get a meeting talking about AI than than it ever was to get a meeting about security for general purposes, right? A cold intro, whatever. It's also easier to get people's attention, right? Basically, every Fortune 500 company and down, if you pulled the top priorities of the executives, AI would be sort of in the top 1, 2, or 3 in most cases. And cyber's worked its way up, and it happened, but the timeline of cyber being something that is productizable by MSPs, to MSPs being like true specialists in it, to the market also lining up where everyone sort of needs it. If you think about it in a 10-year cycle, the first 4 years were like early adopters of for MSPs. AI is happening way, 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 way faster than that. Call it 5 years instead of 10, call it 4, 3, I don't know. But sort of like new technology launched to MSPs providing services and specialized in it. Like I've seen a cycle in the months, and then
ChatGPT
as
launched
it
November 30th, 2022. I just went and looked
yeah,
that up. So less than 3 years ago.
yeah. So it's like the
Yeah.
speed at which is happening, and how the market's shifting so fast is so new. So bring that back to like hiring and like bringing new people in. The people who I've seen do sort of the best at sales, onboarding, and um, uh, training for AI, um, couldn't like had never really used AI before in the role. So it's interesting because you don't always know where it's going to come from. Yes, for more complex workflows and integrations, someone who's very good at scripting or good at APIs is necessary. But for figuring out business use cases and what's applicable, it can come from anywhere in your organization. And you have these secret cyborgs, as we like to call them, which was completely stolen by an AI sort of influencer researcher, of people who are using AI in their day-to-day life and their day-to-day tasks, and not telling anyone about it because they're not sure if they're allowed to, or in a worst case, they're scared that if they tell someone that they've been using it to do a certain thing, they're going to be given more work, or their colleague who they think might not be able to use it or figure it out, might fall behind quicker or get in trouble. So like it comes back to culture and the culture of your organization. Like, are we giving secure and safe access to everyone? How are we positioning and finding things? Like, are we only looking for like screenshots of like crazy AI N8N type workflows that like just seem overwhelming to someone who has never done that before? Or are we just looking to like help the sales reps like prepare for their next meeting, or like where what are we searching for as an organization, and what skills does someone need to have, or what background do they need to have to go in and start using this and be an owner and a champion of this? And that's inside an MSP and for end customers.
Let me put this another way. This question to you guys. Knowing if we're really pushing like that, one of the best ways to get AI people excited about it and get it adopted, getting resources, funding for it, et cetera, is to tie it to ROI, close to revenue, right? And so you guys mentioned sales. God forbid, are we talking, are we suggesting that MSPs need to know sales processes? John.
Have you ever seen the Charlie Always Sunny with all the arrows and the like conspiracy?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what my notebook looks like right now because everything's connected with what Jimmy just sold. So I'm going to try to put a coherent thought together here on this. So to answer your question, should we look at sales? I'm going to finish with that, but I'm going to start back with something that Jimmy said because I want to tie some things together.
Yeah.
Jimmy talked about culture and the culture of AI. You know, we were talking earlier about what Peter Melby said, which is his clear, transparent plans on how he's going to look at support desks and service technicians and how they're going to grow. That's one of the first things we did at Auvik. It's one of the most proven track record things you should do if you haven't done it to your business is communicate to your company your intent with AI, because that starts to distill a lot of this fear of your secret cyborgs, where people are fearful of sharing what they've achieved because they think maybe it's not okay. So being open and transparent at Auvik, we communicated everybody will have access. Here's our IT policy. Here's how we want you to communicate it. We then went a few steps further. We have a thing called AI Hack in 5. This is an easy steal tactic as well. Every company meeting that we have, almost for about 2 months straight, had people lining up to show use cases on how they were using AI in their lines of business. And so it was called the AI Hack in 5. It was the end of our all company meeting where people would just show how they were hacking around with AI. And that was phenomenal. We had sales engineers, we had service desk technicians, we had engineers. No topic was off limits. And so we brought all that in. Now, this ties into what you really asked, John. So I just want to get those out there, some tactics, but this tied into should MSPs know their customers? The only way that we got to these use cases were because I was a student of our business. I sat and talked to every manager and every director and understood their problems and understood their processes so I could stack rank these challenges. And, you know, we were at CCF earlier in the year, which was in March at GTIA, and the term BSP was floating around, business service provider, when we were all taking AI, and the Carolyn April State of the Channel came out. Then we went to PAX 8 Beyond, and the MIP phrase came out, and the managed intelligence provider. And everybody keeps trying to coin this acronym. And I wrote in a post earlier, I think AI is the catalyst for MSPs to move from technology providers to business service providers, whatever the acronym looks like. I think that is a future world that has just really been waiting to happen. Before AI, the best and highest billed MSPs, the ones that were charging premiums, were the ones that were solving business problems. They were the ones that were the students of their customer, the ones delivering niches. I think AI is just a catalyst of what was inevitable with the managed service provider industry, which was we solved total business technology problems. And so, yes, I think we need to be students of our customers and know our sales cycles. And I think that there will be technology to assist us, and there will be technology to help deliver the solutions. But the highest billed MSPs are always the ones that are students of their technology. And sorry, one last callback. On the off screen, you were saying earlier, you made a point that, like, you know, you want to be the MSPs, we're the educated MSPs. I had a point at ChannelCon where I said, you want to be the MSP that is broad in the room, not because you're the cheapest, but because you're the one that taught them to start having these conversations. And so that doesn't happen because you teach them Grok or AI or ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these other things. That happens because you taught them how to use AI in their business. So
and that's
sorry,
not just an MSP
that's
thing,
my
right?
Charlie
Like
note.
we had that same conversation internally as well, right? When I joined, as I said, we didn't have a ton of tooling available. And getting with all of the different departmental heads, getting the folks together on, like, explaining what we were attempting to do, how this was going to make their life better, how we were trying to give them 15% of their day, you know, back to be able to work on more high value things. That ability to just make sure that folks in the room are both knowledgeable about what the function is attempting to do, how it's going to make their life better. I think, you know, certainly it helps in kind of greasing the wheels to take on some smaller use cases and then bigger and bigger use cases over time.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back to something John said real quick because I don't want it to get too far in the past. He said, you've got to be the student of your customer. And John and Joel are having success because they're being the student of their internal customer. Like, this is literally the thing that I built my whole last company around, which was MSPs suck at talking to their customers. For years, we've picked up the phone and gone, Mr. Customer, I'd like to sell you a widget. Would you like to buy a PAM solution? I'm going to come take up the time of your entire leadership team and talk to you about why you got to buy an XDR solution. Oh, now there's another acronym that they made up, and we got to go sell you that widget too. And this is the first time we get to go to our customer the right way. And the ones who have been successful, to John's point, the ones who have been successful are the ones who have been in the room already talking about business and solving business problems. For the first time, we get to go in the room and go, I'm not here to sell you a widget or a gadget. I'm just here to learn about what hurts in your business and be the painkiller that removes it. That's how an MSP wins. That is the strategic conversation we've got to get there for.
And so this always comes, I love this conversation because what always pops up in my mind too is I think everyone nods their heads. Like everyone knows, like, yes, this not only seems like the right thing to do, it feels right too.
But it was hard with security. Like to turn security into business conversations was not easy. This is easy. And I think that's where Jimmy was going.
Yeah. And so like I wanted Jimmy to I think this would be awesome for a chance for you to like share a little bit more in-depth details if you can about how people made this kind of switch, because I always think that this does require a switch in perceptions. And you know, when you're used to Alex having those, that's what your interactions look like with the client, how you then transform that into, hey, we actually want to like dig into your business, all your business workflows, and then be able to identify some like
this time. No, really this time. No, this time it's different, right? We've been promising it forever and we got to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think two things, right? So the first thing is many MSPs that I've worked with will fall back to a security conversation with AI first. And that's okay if that's where you're getting started. There's a whole conversation to be had about data leakage, shadow AI, all of that. And if that's what you're comfortable and that's what you know, that's okay. The MSPs who I've seen sort of shift into these business and ROI driven conversations away from leading with security first, it's looked like a couple different things. Taking a tools or integration approach. Hey, do you guys use a CRM in your business? Do you know how to use AI with your CRM in your business? We can help you do that, right? Like that's narrow, it's high value, it's simple, it's something that most businesses have. Another approach that I've seen, and I've seen MSP owners start with this and then build out the program, is bring me the 5 most annoying, cumbersome business processes that you have in your organization. And we're going to pick 2 of them and we're going to figure out if there's places where we can take AI to make parts of it or the whole thing easier. And setting the scope and being honest about limitations up front, saying something like, and I've totally stolen this from an MSP, you know, most business tasks are like trudging through the mud, trudging 10 miles through the mud, right? The first 8 miles, 9 miles sometimes are gathering all the requirements, formatting the things and the things you need, chasing down information from people, doing the research. And then the last mile is that super high value research, or that super high value decision making and synthesis, which is why you're paid to do the job that you do. Our goal with applying AI to this situation is to take out the first 5 miles, maybe even 6, maybe even 7, maybe even 8, and someday maybe even 9, where it's just you making that big decision and focusing on that and focusing it on one little mile at a time. Like, okay, your team currently, gets a project ref sheet, like a project sheet, or a list of requirements, and then somebody has to go and get it over email and then come up with a materials list for it. Like, let's automate that. That's simple, right? And there's little pieces along the way, and you can tie that down to time and value and hours and calculate ROI. The many ways we all know how to calculate ROI already. We don't need to dive into that. But it's like, it's okay if where you're at right now is having the conversation security related, but shifting over time and being able to solve business problems is an excellent place to be. And it's not out of reach, and it's very possible, and it's within the wheelhouse of the skills that you already have internally at most MSPs.
John, I saw you had a pretty visible reaction.
Saw the light bulb. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy and I are very aligned a lot on this externally approach. I think I just kind of had some tips, maybe even just some takeaways. Like, one thing that I was on a coffee chat last week with Wes Spencer, and we were talking about the VCIO track for AI. And one thing that we brought up is, hey, before you go into your next QBR, talk to them about their AI AUP. Ask them what their AUP is and what their planned acceptable use policy is to get the wheels spinning on AI. Just even like broker the topic. If you, as Jimmy points out, if you're comfortable in the security and compliance space, start it with a compliance and security hammer. But then as you get into the further thing, what we really came down to was flexing the curiosity muscle. And this is just like, it's very like pontificate-y. It's not real tactic, but you've got to start flexing that curiosity muscle with your customer when it comes down to identifying the use cases, because you're not going to get them by just bringing a timeline and a roadmap. The other things that we said, another quick tactic, and I'll let maybe Joel or somebody else jump in, but like another quick tactic was, it's probably not actually the person you're talking to on the other end that knows the AI use cases. So I did a talk that said execs believe they have 80%, they have an understanding of 80% of them said, I am confident in understanding how much AI is going on in my company. And then another statistic I put right after that was 55% of employees admit to using shadow Gen AI. And so it's not the stakeholder that you're having a VCIO combo with that probably knows what's going on. You need to find that geek or that cyber, what was your term? I wrote it down here because I liked it. The secret cyborg inside the company, and say, bring that person to the next QBR and we're going to do a brainstorming with them. So what's Wes recommended, I really liked it, was find that secret cyborg, bring them up, help them deliver value, and use them as your early test bed, use them as your beta and your alpha. And it's not going to be with the person you're doing the QBR probably with. It's going to be that young 30-something, 20-something person. There's a secret cyborg that's going nuts with AI. And that's the one that you want to align with and create value. Unlikely maybe the CEO who knows everything according to the statistics.
I'll jump in on one thing here and I'll be quick. I've seen some MSPs. Every DNS program out there that MSPs use that I've seen has a category of AI applications. And I've seen MSPs add to their QBR slides, a red, yellow, green on where you are with compliance or policy, and then a high level on like who's using AI services over the past 90 days. And everyone's surprised to see the result. And then being able to have the compliance conversation, then follow up with but actually this is great news because these are your champions and these are who we want to empower. We don't need to reprimand them from doing this.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So find the folks that are already doing it. I think we have a similar approach internally, right? We've got a set of champions that are typically not at the leadership level, but those are the folks that are really excited about AI, are trying to make their own lives easier, right? And that's ultimately why they've gone down the path of trying to develop some of these things internally. Use those folks to help with the ideation path, figure out how to bring it to the company in a way that, conforms to security and privacy requirements. Because those are typically also like the super high value use cases as well, right? Like they went out of their way in their own free time to try to solve this because it's either super annoying or it's super high value. And those are the, the areas of, focus that you want whenever you're doing any of these initiatives.
And John, you were going to say something because you're, finding secret applications is kind of how you wound up at Avik in the first place.
I'll make it brief. It's shameless. If you can get the content out to the people that are listening, when I did my ChannelCon talk, what Jimmy's talking about, I gave sample QBR slides, and I'm hoping, Jimmy, those are the buy sample slides you're seeing out there, because the format you just said is the exact same. So I'm happy to give out the sample slides on how to do your next QBR, talking about shadow Gen AI and brokering it into a business combo. So I don't know if the powers that be could get those slides out there, but I will give them to people.
We know people. Yeah, we know people. We'll make it.
I don't know.
John, if someone using software that you worked on wanted to check into stuff, they could do that, I'm assuming.
It wasn't even shameless, man. It just straight up gave all your DNS, 99% of the tools out there have a .ai domain. It's not rocket science. Like they all made themselves self-identifiable, short of like chatgpt.com.
What I love about that though is it goes back into yes, like there's a ton of money in security. It is a priority for real reasons, right? But I don't know, like some of the so many conversations that just people gave the impression like, man, I'm just become the person of no. I just tell you what you can't do. I'm here to scare you. And I love that you guys are suggesting that, yes, that's still, you can still have a good conversation starter that way. But pivoting it over into Now you're an enabler. You're the person who says like, yes, actually we can do something this, and it's going to add to the business, to efficiencies, to revenue, to bottom line. It just seems like a great. It's one of the things I'm most excited about with all the AI tooling in these conversations. We got a few minutes for questions.
This
And
might be a great
so,
pivot into Chris Thomas's question. Like
yeah,
we've
yeah,
talked
it's
about a lot of things you can do, but he'd like to know, just from the folks who have been working on it, like what are some instances of where we definitely should not use AI for something where it's not ready, or where it's a waste of time, or where it's just a bad implementation. We came up with a lot of the to-dos. Where have you guys stubbed your toe and learned something that you can share with the rest of the class?
I mean, so every AI system has a limit on the number of output tokens it can do, or the amount of words that it can generate in one shot. So when you get to dealing with like really long documents, or documents that are or things of text or spreadsheets that are huge, if you don't have like external tools like code execution or being able to do like multi-level systems, it can be very difficult for AI to do it. So simplest example of that, if you have a report that you generate that is normally 50 pages long, and you ask AI to go generate it and give it a bunch of examples, it will probably fail unless you like really spend a lot of time tuning it and getting it right.
Yeah, so the other use cases that we've shied away from are ones that are more traditionally like machine learning use cases. Similar, I think it was Jimmy was talking about, when you've got massive amounts of data, whether that's for making predictions around next best action or something along those lines. Like they're great for summarizing the outputs of a more traditional modeling approach, but they on their own are not really great for it. I think the other one that, at least from my perspective, unless you've got a extremely good data governance, approach with inside of an organization, things like HR, are areas where, I would say shy away from, unless that the folks that are going to get access to it or should have access to those things, because there's definitely areas where, just the sensitivity of some of that information, even with redaction, there's a risk there. So I think traditionally we've shied away from those types of use cases.
One of the best pieces of advice I got from somebody talking about this exact topic for a podcast was, in some cases, you should feed AI the data it's allowed to have, rather than just expose it to the data that you already have out there, right?
Yeah.
Very selectively ingest things into your AI, as opposed to going, here's SharePoint, good luck.
That's right.
And that goes
Yeah.
back
And
to
that's
the
why the
Natalie example.
Copilot had some challenges early on, right? They made it super, super easy to expose the tool to a lot of information, without really giving the appropriate guardrails. And a lot of companies got bit by doing that. And I think, as you're describing, a lot of folks that are building these tools internally are now very, very purpose-built data sets. And often they're abstractions of like the original data set, so that they've gone through redaction and all of the other things that you want to do from like a massaging perspective to get them ready. But the one thing you don't want to do is have somebody be able to ask what somebody's salary is or something like that, and be able to get an answer. So you got to just be careful around the governance side.
I'll be quick. I just flip mine around, what not to do. Don't focus on things. A lot of it can just be done with traditional RPA. So focus on things that are unstructured into structure, not just automating a task just because AI can do it. So don't do AI that automation can solve. Don't make a multifunction. AI exceeds with single purpose functions, just like coding does. Like, don't give it 10 different jobs. It should have a singular purpose. Rick and Morty reference there. You serve butter. Don't do AI that removes jobs people love. I don't care how much value you create there. Like, that is just one way to create friction in your business. Don't remove jobs people love. And don't introduce AI in high friction use cases, meaning don't put AI out there in a way that's going to create stress or anxiety or friction amongst your employees.
I'm going to spin Don's tip the other direction and say, don't dive headfirst into projects that maybe aren't repeatable. If you know your niche and know your industry, like, let's focus on projects that we can scale across multiple customers, because you're never good at any project the first time you do it. But by the third time, man, so when you're trying to build something that's repeatable, and you're trying to turn this into something you can take to market as a product, think about which things are repeatable across your vertical or across things that your customers all have in common.
That's right. Yeah. Anything that has high differentiations across different function groups are really challenging for AI, right? You can solve one particular function group's challenge, but it's not applicable to a lot of the other ones. You end up rebuilding the same thing multiple times in different ways.
So we've got a couple minutes left, and I want to be sure to let everyone know that we're coming back. We have part 3 of the series next Wednesday, same time, same YouTube channel, same Zoom channel, sorry. And we're going to be diving deeper into some practical use cases. We're going to have Tom Lawrence and Ashley Cooper from Roost and from SIP, from Cyberchain, I mean, coming on to join us and sharing some, for getting really nerdy with it, getting down into the weeds, showing some cool things that they've done and also walking through the basics. So that's a great session for if you're techie, if you got tech people on the team and you want to guide them towards that session. I think they're going to come away with some cool ideas.
They're going to teach you how to be a secret cyborg.
How to be a secret, how to be not
Cooper
so
definitely will.
And I guess, but going into that, I mean, I think what we've highlighted here is that, you know, it's really the business value, thinking through processes. All these things are so important when you're thinking about the foundations of how you're going to make this a strategic initiative versus just a tinkering. That said, we all love to talk about tools, and so any suggestions around the panel about I guess tooling and where kind of that falls into these early stages, or when you're trying to make sure that, you know, you're moving fast, but also doing things in ways that are secure and scalable. Any advice around that?
My big one is just find a model and stick with it. Like, yes, Copilot's not as strong as some of the other tools out there, but fundamentally, a lot of this is going to be ubiquitous in 2 years or 3 years. And so I argue being a mastercraft in a single model is going to outweigh the trying every single model and trying to be like an amateur at all of them. So that's my only thought. Like, there's probably people that disagree with me on that, but
yeah, I think on our side, we don't typically use a single model, right? Like we have models that are designed for specific use cases, especially on the agentic side, right? Like the way that we've approached build outs of internal technology is to make it effectively underlying model agnostic. That helps with cost. It also helps with, you know, use cases. There's certain foundational models that are just better at things than others. So rather than like picking a single one and hoping that it solves all of your use case, find the model that works really well for the one use case that you need to do, and then you can, you know, expand that over time, or, you know, identify other models that may be a little bit less costly, a little bit more performant for use cases that just don't require huge foundational models.
How about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, have fun. Like it's fun stuff and shoot big, like to start. You know, what I'll do with any AI experiment is like I'll give it the most amount of context and the most amount of information possible in the first go and see how far it gets and see where it got stumbled up, and then be like, okay, that's my division point. All right, that's the point that I need to actually strive for, not the whole thing in one shot. And you know, I'm constantly surprised. I think I've moved more from annoyed to surprised. I'm surprised more often than I'm annoyed. Maybe I'm just numb to being annoyed. But like having fun with it, and you know, it feels like magic sometimes. Like UI stuff, if you're having AI generate emails or something, having it generate a nice HTML format can be really fun. Like things like that are just like sort of like easy wins, but like feel really cool.
I think it's a good note to end on. I mean, some of this stuff, like it really is reawakening, I think, for a lot of folks. Like this is why they got into IT. You know, there's exciting things to learn. There's so much you can try out. I think yes, we always need to be mindful about being secure and not ending up like me with like 1,000 different subscriptions that I've now forgot about. But I think it's important not to lose sight of that too. Like
You
this
can
is
get
a
a
really
subscription
exciting
to help you
time.
track your subscriptions.
if only there was. Thank you all for taking time again. I thought this was a great discussion. Thanks everybody in the audience for joining too. We'll be back next week with part 3 to wrap things up. And all these guys will be sending out some emails with the link to the recording, how you can get in touch with these 3 smart gents, and maybe get some slides too that John was teasing. We'll see what we can do there. And with that, I think we'll close out. But thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for
thanks for
hanging out.
having us.
Thank you.
It's been fun.